Right now, they were going to move on with a look at what's grabbing headlines here in France with Flo. Hi there. Okay. Now, we've been talking politics all week. This is after some local elections in France's departmental council elections, basically. Now, a third round is going to be held today. It seems like there's election fever here in France.
Yeah, that's right. Now, these departments are an administrative division of France. There are 96 of them in metropolitan France, 5 overseas departments. And today, the departmental council, so these local levels of government, are going to elect their presidents. And there aren't going to be a lot of women. And that is what Libération and several other papers are focusing on today. A maximum of 9 women could be elected president of these local government councils.
Out of 96.
That's right. So a lot more men than women. And you can see here the front page of Libération, they talk about parité et ta sœur. So that roughly translates as gender equality, yeah, right. And I like this front page because you can see here Marianne. Marianne is the symbol of the French Republic, so a woman, but they've put a mustache on her because there aren't very many
She
women.
looks a bit more like Asterix at the moment,
right.
Doesn't she? Poor old Marianne. Well, I thought that there were laws here in France guaranteeing gender equality. We were told that there were going to be more women elected in these elections than ever.
Absolutely. This law dates back to 2000. This law forces parties to include equal numbers of men and women on their party lists for elections, and that's exactly what happened in these departmental elections. And in fact, there are fines if you don't follow the law. But despite all this, Libération takes a closer look. They talk about les élections qui tournent mal. Now, that's a mix between tourner mal, to take a bad turn, and tourner mal, male, to become more and more male-dominant.
One for the French speakers.
That's right, one for the French speakers out there. So according to what's going to happen today, only 6 to 9% of these local departmental assemblies will be led by women. And Libération points out that even further, often these women are demoted to the role of vice president.
I suppose you could say, though, that, I mean, women could stand for election. Maybe if more women stood for election, more of them would be elected and become the heads of these councils. It's not necessarily that they're being stopped, is it?
No, absolutely. Lots of papers are focusing on the fact that what's the problem here is actually tradition here in France. And Libération focuses on that in their editorial. They say the weight of tradition and habit is such that positions of responsibility are primarily entrusted to men. And this happens not only in politics, but all over the workplace. Women who actually make it to the top often pay for it. Libération points out that there's actually quite a significant wage gap between men and women CEOs. On average, the gap is of 14%, so pretty big wage gap. And you can see here the headline of their editorial is Combat, struggle. The struggle continues for gender equality, whether it's in politics or all over the workplace. And Le Parisien agrees in their editorial today. They say work still needs to be done. They're focusing more on the political side. They say that parties need to do more than just pay lip service and apply the law because they have to. It calls for a major overhaul of traditions and customs practiced in French politics because Le Parisien aujourd'hui en France points out politics is still very much a boys' club here in France.
I think that's something that we see in a lot of countries around Europe and around the world as well. Well, we can talk about one woman in French politics who's very, very prominent. She's the mayor of one of the biggest towns in the country.
That's right. This is Martine Aubry. She's the mayor of Lille. She's really an old guard of the Socialist Party. She was behind the famous 35-hour work week. She was once a labor minister for Lionel Jospin. Why are we talking about her today? She's still very much a high-profile socialist, and she is very critical of the president, François Hollande. Yesterday she said that the president needs to reorientate his policies, get in line with the majority of socialists. This, of course, in the wake of those departmental elections, which were seen as being quite a defeat for the Socialist Party. And she warns Hollande and his buddies that they could actually face some serious trouble at a Socialist Party Congress that's scheduled 2 months from now in Poitiers. She's not the only one piping in to be critical of President Hollande and his government. A former minister that we haven't heard about in quite a while has given an interview to Les Echos. That's Arnaud Montebourg. You might remember him. He was the former minister of industrial renewal.
He was the one pushing Made in France and
That's right.
stripy jumpers.
Exactly, stripy jumpers, etc. He had a very public falling out with the government. He gives this interview in Les Echos where he lashes out against François Hollande's stubbornness and says he's asphyxiating the economy with his policies. And he actually goes on to say that François Hollande's policies are exactly the same as Nicolas Sarkozy's policies when he was president.
Ooh, that is
an
stinging criticism, isn't it? Yes. Well, let's move away from politics now. We are talking about still the aftermath of the Charlie Hebdo attacks. You remember the last sort of chapter of those happened at a kosher supermarket here in Paris, with 4 people killed. And one of the officers involved in that particular part has been speaking to the paper.
That's right. And he's part of Le RAID, that I guess was kind of like the SWAT team here in France. And you can see here on the front page of Aujourd'hui en France, he tells his story. Now, he is going to remain anonymous, as all the officers of the RAID do, but he tells what happened. He was reportedly the first one to enter the kosher supermarket on January 9th, where Amédi Coulibaly was holding 26 people hostage. Very interesting, fascinating account of that story. If you're interested, check out Le Parisien.
Absolutely, very interesting to read his account. Thanks very much, Flo Villamino, who'll be back a bit later on looking through the international papers for us as well.